And again, welcome to our first AuditMate webinar. AuditMate has been around for some 12 odd years now, maybe a bit longer. I know it was developed while I was in practice, and we developed it for our own practice, and then we decided to go out on our own and try and conquer the world. We haven't done that, but we've certainly got a lot of users, as is testimony to all the people that are here today. We have over 100 attendees, and we obviously have a lot more users than that, but this is 100 people. I'm blown away by the enthusiasm to get some AuditMate training again. So I hope that we're going to put together a whole lot of these webinars, and we'll just take it a couple of weeks at a time maybe, and see how we go. Right, let's close this screen down. And most of you who are here today will be familiar with AuditMate. You've used it already, and you'll be familiar with what I'm showing you. I'm sorry, this is the first time that I'm doing one of these webinars. I've got 3 screens in front of me. You can only see one of them, but there's quite a bit happening on each of them. So there may be the occasional pause while I just gather my thoughts and see what's happening. But yeah, let's launch right into this. It's rather strange just speaking to yourself and not having someone to see and respond to what you're saying. So I'm hoping that everyone's hearing everything, and we are recording this, so for those who are experiencing load shedding or do experience load shedding during the course of the webinar, we'll make that available to everyone afterwards, probably sometime next week, as we edit it and just maybe polish it up a little bit. Right, we're on version 10.0.4.4 of AuditMate. If you're not on that version, then you need to run the updater. Okay, and there's actually a button on the screen that says Run the Updater. So I suggest you click on that sometime and run it. Now, if you happen to be on a version before version 10, that updater is not going to update something that's on version 8 or version 9. To get that, you're going to click on this Downloads button, which will take you to our website. I'll just drag that across here for you to see. So it will take you to our website, and what you should be doing is downloading this full download. Also follow the installation instructions. It's a good idea. And if you have any hassles, you just phone me. You might notice we're using this thing called TeamViewer, and we use this every day because it's a great support tool where you can run TeamViewer from here or from within the program, and you give me a username and a password. I can connect up to your computer and work on your computer and solve your problem, and it works really well. So that's that button, or we've got this button here to start TeamViewer as well. Okay, the AuditMate launcher is something relatively new. Previously you just used to start AuditMate and that was it, but a good few months ago now, we wanted to make it possible to have 2 clients open at the same time, or maybe more, so that you could be working on your 2014 and you could have your 2013 open as well. And this works particularly well if you've got 2 monitors. Okay, working on a laptop probably not work quite as well because you'll be tabbing between the screens. If you have 2 monitors, it works really well because you can look back at what's in your old client file and work on your new client file. In fact, a productivity tip for anyone who's serious about getting some work done is to get 2 monitors. You get a lot more work done. I've got 3 on my desk because I have one open with Outlook emails all the time, and then I work on the other 2. So this launches here so that we can launch into a client folder or multiple client folders. There are also a couple of other buttons at the top here which are worth just running through with you. The one is the AuditMate. Now, AuditMate is the Excel part of AuditMate, which generates the financial statements, which does the page numbering, the note numbering, all the printing. It's a very powerful add-on that is included in Excel. Because obviously the financial statements come out in Excel, and we need something to drive that and something to link between AuditMate and the Excel financial statements. So this button here is for installing the AuditMate. So when you first start up or first install AuditMate, and you follow those installation instructions, then it's going to tell you to use this button to install AuditMate. Now, occasionally it happens that Excel doesn't play nicely with us, and then this can be used again. So what you would do is you just click on it, say load it up, and it will ask you, is this the right place? You just say yes, and basically it's reinstalled the AuditMate add-on. Right, I mentioned the updater earlier. The updater is for getting all the latest versions of AuditMate, AuditMate, and all our templates. So clicking on that, we say run it, and it will go and it will check for updates, see if there's anything, and it will run through the process automatically. It will run through the process of installing those the updates. Just exit that, and let's come back into AuditMate. Okay, one very powerful tool that we added several years ago now is this PDF viewer. Now, we included it in the launcher as well as in the AuditMate client program, because it's something that you can use even external to AuditMate. I use it all the time for filling in PDF documents or writing on them, even for scanning in documents. In fact, one of the things I wanted to show you today, a powerful thing in it, is that it's got a little scan button here. So you can get a document from your scanner. And I'll just do that quickly so you can see how easy it is. I'm just going to choose the black and white option and scan that in. So this could be a bank statement or whatever. So even something external to AuditMate, you could use it. You can put a stamp on it. Okay, there are different stamps here that we've got. You can even add your signature as a stamp. You can use the typewriter, so you can go here and you can type on it, and then you can save that document, and that will be updated. We can just save it anyway. So very powerful tool, this PDF tool. Also, you can email straight from here. I click on this little button here, go email, and it will open up Outlook, and I can send that to somebody. So straight from within this tool. Now, PDF documents are becoming more and more common. You get them in your IT34s that come back. You might want to write something on there, send it to your client. You can use this tool to do that. Very powerful. Okay, we move along. Training. One of the things that we have done for a long time is include all our PowerPoint training modules in the program. That's so that people can get up and running quickly, and we don't have to go to venue and train them and stuff like that. I think we're going to probably replace this training button with webinars going forward. But if we click on it, you'll see there are a whole lot of PowerPoint presentations. The most common one to use would be the accounts preparation one. And let's just go to it quickly and see. But it's a computer-based training module. It's a PowerPoint spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation. And it will take you through. There's an index of how to use AuditMate. In this case, how to prepare the financial statements. So a very useful tool. And when you first start using the program, obviously this is a good way to get to grips with things. Many people just launch straight into doing it, expecting to be able to do it easily. And yes, usually they cope, but there's a few rules to follow when you're preparing the financial statements, and it's really useful to go through this training module. And the other ones for that matter. There's one on auditing. There's a couple. Here's one on hiding comparatives. This is a common question. And here's a little training module on how to do that. TeamViewer, as I mentioned earlier, that's the button that we use to launch TeamViewer so that we can connect up and help you. And then the downloads, we have a YouTube channel. There's only one item in there at the moment. It's the RTR 14 overview, but I think we'll probably add to that going forward as well. And then we've added a button recently called Messages. And if I click on there, you'll see these are messages which I want to get to my users. It might be something important, it might be something that we're promoting, it might be changes to the templates, whatever. But this is the primary way that I will communicate with users. So it's people who are actually using the program, not trying to sell the program to somebody else. This is for users. Like we advertised the webinar series, and I did this the day before I sent out the emails. Unfortunately, I only got 4 responses from this, which tells me that people aren't looking at this. Now it automatically comes up if I've added a new message. When you first start AuditMate in the morning, if I put a new message out there, that window will come up. Please just take a moment to see what it's about, and let's see if we can get more responses to webinar number 2 when I put it out on the message system. One very important tick box here is auto backups. I just cannot stress enough how this can save tears, because every week I have people who phone or email and say my computer's been stolen, or the office was broken into and the computers were stolen, or whatever. They've lost the data somewhere along the line. If you've got auto backups on, at least you'll have a backup. And preferably, my son Michael put out an email a while ago about Dropbox. You can tell the auto backup where to back up. So you normally have this switched on. You go to the admin and you go to defaults. And here's an auto backup folder. Now, if you set that auto backup folder to your Dropbox folder or your Google Drive folder, then every time you leave AuditMate, it's going to do an auto backup. And that's going to go into your Dropbox, your Google Drive, and will go into the cloud. And then if you have data loss for any reason, it's going to be there and you can get it back. That is really, really useful. Also on this screen, something that many people are not aware of is at the bottom of each document in AuditMate, there's a logo. And that logo is usually this one. But you can change that. And you can change that to be your company logo. So you'd merely click on the little yellow button, go select your logo, and now that will be the logo that appears on all the other on all the reports. In fact, I'm going to leave that on there, so I'll show you just now. We also have updater settings, so that's to tell the updater to check every month, week, or whatever. You can set that as you see fit. Our registrations, and that's basically covered. So the launcher serves the purpose of launching into a client, creating a new client, or opening an existing client. Now each client is in their own folder. As you'll see from this list here, now this, just notice, is a recently opened and available folders list. This is not a list of all the clients on your system. It's just the most recently opened ones. And it's got a date and a time when they were last opened. So it's useful from, even when you come to do your timesheet at the end of the week, you might want to look back at this list and see which clients you worked on. Okay, so it's just recently opened. So I'll go into a client that I recently opened now. I double click in here and it will launch the main AuditMate program. Now, AuditMate, okay, I'm talking about AuditMate today because AuditMate encapsulates AccountsMate as well. For those of you that have got AccountsMate, you basically have exactly the same program as AuditMate, just you don't have access to the audit steps. That's the only difference. So the audit steps are all switched off if you're running AccountsMate. So I'm just going to refer to AuditMate. When you start it up, obviously we start with the index. And this really is the index to the whole file. Okay, it's one client folder. You see at the bottom here. I hope you can see my mouse. That's the folder that we're working in. And everything to do with this client and this job should be included in this folder. If we have a look here under this Files button, we'll see what this folder contains. It contains another folder called the E folder. Now the E folder is all the documents that appear on the right of the screen. There's another folder called Own Files, which is for stuff that you maybe get from your client, so maybe your own fixed assets register, scanned in documents and things like that. And then everything else in here is files that were included with the template. So you'll notice there are all sorts of types of files here. There's Excel files, there are Word documents, these ones are the database files. There's probably some PDF files. There's a whole lot of things. In this case, this is probably the largest template. It's for the PTY audit, but there are over 100 files in there of various things. Tax calcs, stock summaries, all sorts of things, but they all go in one folder. It's really important to understand everything goes in that one folder. And when I do a backup, it backs up that entire folder, including those subfolders up the top there. If you need to move this file from one person's computer to another person's computer, you can do it by just moving the entire folder. Or you can back up the folder and restore it on the other side. We'll look at that just now. Okay, so we've got an index to the file. And this index, we built this really in line with the auditing standards and the way that the auditing standards are structured. That same order. So we put all the review documentation at the top in section A. Then really where you start your audit starts in the pre-engagement side of things. So we have a whole lot of pre-engagement documents. Then we have our planning documents. We have all our fieldwork documents, which is all your lead schedules, your programs, your checklists. Then after the fieldwork, just run down, because there's a section for each item that's on your balance sheet. So generally it goes through in balance sheet order, and then towards the end we've got the income and expenses, and then we have a completion section, and we have some sundry documents and accounting records. Okay, if I just contract all those, you'll see like that. Okay, so in a nutshell. Now, occasionally when I'm doing support with someone, I'll ask them, well, which template are you using? And what we did, we put it in the first line of the template. I'll just expand this again. It will tell you PTY, IFRS for SME, audit, and then what version number it is. That would help me to identify if there have been any changes to those templates. Generally speaking, over the last 2 years, the changes have been minor because the audit standards haven't really changed. The accounting standard, the IFRS for SME, hasn't really changed. So any changes that have happened in the templates over the last year or so have just been minor things. It might be spelling mistakes that we've fixed up, or added some extra notes into the financial statements because someone suggested that. By the way, I like suggestions, and I really do value the feedback that comes through from everybody. I don't always manage to act on those things as quickly as I would like, but they're always there, and they're going to be worked on. So make your suggestions, and these things will certainly get into the program down the line. Okay, so we've got the index, and we do it in the order of the ISA statements. Now, on the right-hand side, we have the E folder, final PDF documents. I like to think of this as our way of going green. We used to print everything out. When AuditMate started in our own office probably 15 years ago, everything was printed out. We didn't automate the financial statements at all. In fact, we did have a spreadsheet, but you used to type those numbers in yourself. It was only when Rolf came along and joined me that we built the automated financial statements. So everything used to be printed out on the file. It would be signed off manually. And a couple of years ago, we decided, well, let's try and go green with this thing. So we replaced the printed file with an E folder, and it works exactly like a printed file. If I take a document, for example, let's take this one, checklist, down here, and I click on ePrint. We're going to ePrint that document. So it creates a PDF document, and it displays it on this side. It also shows us a green line, okay, because we're going green. And so this is just like your printed file. Now, if I was to go into this checklist and I ticked off some of the items in it, let's tick off something here. And so, no. Okay, so I ticked off on line item number 2. Close that down. Now you'll know, oh dear. Okay, that's not supposed to happen when you're doing a live webinar. Okay, but what you'll notice is line item 2 does not get across next to it because it's not a live document. It's the e-printed document. Now, if I want to e-print it again, I go to e-print, say yes, and this time it's going to have that in it. So treat it like a paper-based file, except that it's electronic. Now, the E folder contains all these documents. You'll notice this was B100. And if I go and look in here, just waiting for your screens to catch up with me. I see it's running a little bit slow. Okay, if I look in here, there's the E folder, and I go into the E folder, we'll see document B100. Okay, now that line item was B100. And in fact, the way that it appears in the E folder is if the document exists. So whatever the line item is, let's take B200, the E folder is looking for document B200.pdf. It's not there, so it doesn't display it. It doesn't show it with a green line. Okay, if it is there, it will display it. Now you can annotate on this document. You can use the typewriter, the draft stamp like I showed earlier. You can email straight out of here. If you still want to print it, then there's a little printer icon here. You click on that printer icon, it's going to come up with the printer dialog, and you can then send it to your physical printer. Okay, so we're trying to go green, and in theory and in practice some people do this, that the partners review these documents that are in the E folder, and that can work quite well. All right. So I'm just looking at my notes. All right, I'd like to just look at the accounting aspect of AuditMate first, because that's generally where we start. So when we start up a new client, in fact, let's do that. Let's close this one down. Notice it's doing an automatic backup. Okay, because I had auto backup switched on, so it automatically did a backup for me. But let's start a brand new client. So we'll click on New Client, and let's give it a name. Right, now it's going to put it into the default. It's going to create a new folder underneath this default folder, AuditMate 5 clients. We'll click OK. Now we work from templates. So we created a whole lot of templates, and you'll see a whole lot of templates in this list here. Okay, so some of them are 2013, there's 2014 ones, there's a whole lot of old ones on my computer. But generally you're going to want to choose the most recent one. So let's deal with an audit, 2014, it's a PTY, IFRS for SMEs, and it's the audit. We'll click on Next, and it will copy the files across. So from one folder, which is in our templates, it copies that entire collection of files into this new client folder that I've just created. At the bottom of the screen there you can see New Test 2014, that's the folder it's gone to. So it copied from templates, PDY, audit, into this New Test 2014. Now we give the company a name, make sure that the year and date is correct, and we can click on Next. Now you'll notice we're in a thing called HelpMate. Okay, now HelpMate it's a wizard that guides us through the process of starting a new client, copying in the template, bringing in the trial balance, assigning it to the leads, and producing the financial statements at the end. So first step was the template. Then we name the client. Now it expects us to go and import from a trial balance. But you might just want to, you can also just type in your trial balance. Usually we'll be importing. And the most common imports are from Pastel, QuickBooks, and Excel. On this window, the buttons along the top here are all help guides which show you how to do this. So if I'm going to be importing from Pastel and I don't know how to do it, I'll click on this little button and it's going to start a PowerPoint training which shows me how to get the trial balance from Pastel into AuditMate, step by step. Okay, if I'm doing it from Excel, I can click on the one on this other one, and I'm going to get the Excel guide on how to import this. Now the Excel guide, or the import from Excel, is probably the most useful and versatile. If you're running Pastel Evolution, for example, you're going to get a trial balance which comes out as a real mess. But you can get it into Excel, and you can then manipulate it in Excel, get it into columns that you can import, and use the Excel import. Just about any accounting package, you can get the import or get the trial balance into Excel so that you can use it. And then you would do the import. So let's look at this Pastel import. I think I might have a file somewhere that I can import. So let's just go back a step there. The first thing I do on a Pastel import is I select the file that I exported from Pastel. So let me just go and find one. I think I've got one in here. I can quickly just have a look at it. So say browse import file. It lets me have a look and see now. It's taken that import file, brought it in here. This is what's going to come in. If this looks like a mess, don't try and import it. But if the numbers look right and everything lines up in columns, that looks good, then you can try and import it. Okay, we would normally choose this year, last year, and overwrite accounts, import, and it's going to run through and those files are going to come in. Let's just give it a moment. Right, when that's complete, I can just check that a trial balance came in. I've got these little hot buttons up the top here. Click on accounts. There we go, there's a trial balance came in. So something got imported. In fact, I can check that all got imported because it's zeros at the bottom of my trial balance. It's quite important. And the next thing I would have to do is assign this to lead schedules. Okay, the way that AuditMate works, let's go to the next page, is every account gets assigned to a lead schedule. That's how those accounts get grouped for purposes of reporting in the trial balance, in the annual financial statements. So in the balance sheet and in the income statement. And every account is assigned to a lead. So let's have a look. We've got a gross income lead, we've got sales accounts. Okay, in this one, there was a standard chart of accounts, and we imported. We didn't overwrite that chart of accounts, so we have a whole lot of blank accounts. I'll untick that one, we won't have the 0 accounts. I can assign these. So I'll just click somewhere wrong. Okay, so if I double click on this, it will get assigned to the lead that I've selected on the other side. And we'll run through that process and assign everything to lead schedules. I'm not going to do it now because it takes time. I'm going to close this one down, and I'm going to open up one that has that already assigned. I think I'm going to run out of time if I don't speed up a little bit here. Sorry. Okay, if I want to get back to my HelpMate, I can click on the Help tab and click on HelpMate. Go back, pass the import. Okay, we've done the assigning of the leads, and right at this point, if I've assigned every account to a lead schedule. So if I open up the financial statements, I can do this from 3 different places. Let's have a look and see what we get. Okay, this is from our template. We created a set of financial statements which is very comprehensive. It has thousands and thousands of lines in it. And we have linked everything up to those lead schedules. So when you assign an account to a lead schedule, it's going to come through into these financial statements. If I look at the balance sheet, for example, we've got numbers in this balance sheet because these have been picked up from those accounts which have been assigned to the leads. In fact, each cell has a formula. Now this is where the AuditMate add-in comes into play. But we created formulas. For example, this formula is AM leads, and it's picking up cell E27, which is I000. So it's picking up the lead total of the lead I000. I can check that by going into my AuditMate, going to the leads and looking at I000. Okay, so the total of it should be 50,340, and get back to my Excel, 50,340. So that's one formula, one way that it picks up. Now that little C is for the current year. If I go to the prior year column, you'll see it's a P. So the formula looks at what lead it is, whether it's the current year or the prior year. We also have formulas that pick up prior years before that as well, but I won't touch on that right now. If I go to the, okay, just going to go back to this document is hyperlinked. So anything that's got blue writing is a hyperlink. If I click on detailed income statement, it's going to take me to the detailed income statement. Now you'll notice straight away here, wow, there's no sales figures. But there are sales figures in AuditMate. Now why is that? Okay. The balance sheet and the statutory income statement, they are created by links to the leads. But the detailed income statement is created by links to accounts. If I look at a formula here, I'll see that the formula here is AMAC and an account number. Now every chart of accounts is different. That's the part that you imported, and it can have its own numbering system. It's completely different. So we couldn't automatically link it here. So we created in the add-in a thing where we regenerate. And if we click on this regenerate button, it will go through and it will rebuild the detailed income statement. If For those of you that are familiar with this, regenerate only rebuilds the detailed income statement. It doesn't do anything else. And once you've done it once, you generally don't have to do it again unless you've added new accounts. So if you've passed a journal entry, say for depreciation, and depreciation wasn't previously showing in here, that's created a new account or a balance in an account, and you would have to do a regenerate. Now when you've done a regenerate, your balance sheet should balance. So you can come and have a look. Does it balance? Okay. In this case it doesn't, and I purposefully have left two errors in here so that we can see the common mistakes that are made. The most common mistake is when we have leads and sub-leads. Now, if we done regenerate, we see our balance sheet doesn't balance. How do we find where our problem is? What I like to do is go back into my AuditMate, just close down anything that's open. Okay, I always keep the index open because the index shows a PDF viewer. So if I create any reports and whatever, it's going to display on the right-hand side here. So keep the index open. Okay, so I've got an unbalanced trial balance. Right, where do I start? First thing I do is under the Accounts tab, I'll click on Error Checks. Okay, Error Checks will run through and it will make sure that there is a lead schedule for any account that's assigned to a lead schedule. Now, it can happen that that happens, possibly when copying between templates and that sort of thing. But that's a first starting point, and this will tell you if there are any problems. In this case, there aren't, so that's not my problem. Then I would go to this Drafts, and I would go to the Drafts balance sheet. Okay, sorry. When I ran the error checks, okay, it actually closed down my index, so I need to open my index again. Okay, then I'll go to Drafts and Balance Sheet, and that's going to give me a report of this trial balance that's in here to those leads, and I can compare this to what I've got in my Excel. So I would start off by looking at this number here on the assets, current assets, the total. I would this is where two screens really comes in useful. But I would come in here and compare these numbers. Are they the same? Yes, they are the same. Right? What I found is when I get to non-current liabilities, 7,900. Let's have a look in my AuditMate. And non-current liabilities. Aha! What's missing? Shareholders' loans is missing. Now, you become familiar with this over time, but you'll notice shareholders' loans is allocated to R000. If I look in my Excel financial statements, this number next to shareholders' loans is looking for the sub-lead R000.01. Now that's interesting because shareholders' loans could be in debit or in credit. And if they're in credit, they go to R000.01. Sorry, I've got that wrong. They could be disclosed under equity or under non-current liabilities. So we have sub-leads, R00002, R00001. In AuditMate, we assigned shareholders' loans to R000, so we need to change that. How do we change it? Well, we could go to the accounts. We could go find the shareholders' loan. Okay, there are various ways to find it. We can look through the list. You can click on the heading at the top and get it into alphabetical order. Okay. So there's R000. So it's gone to the wrong account. Let's go and change it. And we click on Ticks and Edit, and you'll notice we had two subs. Okay, we wanted non-current, so let's put it there. Click on OK. Now, I'm going to show you this because I've changed the lead now, but if I go into my Excel, you'll notice it's still the same. Even if I click on Recalc Formulas, it's still the same. But you say, hang on, you assigned that to that lead. Why is it not there? Now the reason is, the reason for this is Excel cannot directly read the files that we use in AuditMate. So we have something between AuditMate and Excel, which I call intermediate files. Those intermediate files, they get created every time you see that little box come up that says rounding trial balance. So if I close this window, you'll see it come up, rounding trial balance. If I tick on this button up here, you'll see it come up, rounding trial balance. Okay, so that is creating these intermediate files. Now Excel can read those intermediate files. So we just recreated them. If I go back into my Excel now, okay, still not showing because we have to tell it go read those intermediate files, and we do it by clicking on this button here that says recalculate formulas. If I click on that now, there we go. Now it's going to pick it up. Okay, so there's a total now. Is it green? No. Down here it's showing me in red. Oh, there's something wrong. Okay, ooh, what's wrong? Well, a little bit of further investigation by comparing that balance sheet to this, and in particular the equity statement, we'll find that here our opening retained earnings is not coming through. And that's because the opening retained earnings hasn't been allocated to the sub-lead again. So let's go find that one. This time I'm going to look for it in a different way. I'm going to go to leads, and I'm going to look at it's lead 000, and that's been allocated to that lead. But if I double click on here and have a look, there's a whole lot of sub-leads, and it should have gone to the opening balance one. I'll click OK, close this down. You see it did the rounding the trial balance thing. Okay, so it means it created those intermediate files. Go back into my Excel. Not there yet. I need to click on Recalc Formulas. Okay, now if I go to my balance sheet, it's balancing. So all through the financial statements, we've got these lines that are doing check balances. We do it on every note as well. It will show us at the bottom of each note whether it balances or not. Okay, whether that note ties in. So those ones tie in. If I look at some others, maybe further down. That one says it's out of balance and tells us how much it's out of balance by. So we put these helps in to help us along the way. Because our goal is to produce financial statements nice and quickly, but completely, comprehensively, on a really high quality. Okay, so we link everything up, and we've shown our link to the detailed income statement. We've linked the balance sheet with the leads, and in the notes we can build our notes as well. Now we'll go into this in more detail in a future webinar, because in fact I've probably gone into more detail now than I should have in terms of doing an introduction and an overview. But I want you to see that it's a very structured approach to getting from the trial balance through the leads into the financial statements. And you need to understand that flow of how things get there. Right. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes again. Now, in fact, last night I had to do some financials for the bank. I wanted to take out a loan and to buy a house, and I need 10 months financials. So I need my accounts up to the end of December. So I do it all on QuickBooks, and I've got everything's up to date because invoicing's all up to date. And I was just amazed at how quickly I could produce my financial statements. I took last year's financials, I created a new client like we did just now, copied that in, imported my trial balance, and 10 minutes later, I had my financial statements. That's efficiency. And I know that it was all right. And I got them and I checked them. And, you know, can this like be true? You know, I only do this once a year for my own accounts. But it works, and it works so well. Right, let's close down Excel. And let's just save that. Now, I wanted to tell you guys earlier that there is a question box that you can type into the question box. And I'm trying to just have a look at the questions that have come through and see if there's any questions so far. Okay, we've got some people who've just told me that they got the load shedding. Right, let's see. Okay, I have a question here that says, will the regenerate button have the same effect as recalc formulas? It actually does more than recalc formulas, because what recalc formulas does, it's like pressing, I think it's Control F9 in Excel. It just recalculates all the formulas. But the regenerate will rebuild the detailed income statement and recalculate. So it does have the same effect, yes, but it does more. It does more than you need it to do. Okay, and I have a question about the intermediate file. Okay, the intermediate file, usually it's what we would call intelligently generated. So if I open the accounts, when I close them, it does a recalculate if it needs, it regenerates those intermediate files if it needs to. When I open a lead, close it, it does it as well. But if you need to do it manually, there's this little button at the top, the middle of these 5 little buttons. It says round trial balance. But you click it, that's what it does. It rounds the trial balance and generates those intermediate files. I'm just trying to look at some other questions. Okay, someone says, I'm battled to import from QuickBooks. Okay, we'll deal with that in another webinar, because the QuickBooks import, there are 2 ways to do it. And what often happens, if I just show you very quickly, is you either import from the customized or from the trial balance. Now, you'll only know what those are if you've watched the little training module on it. But what usually happens is someone is done the trial balance and they're trying to import from customized, and then it doesn't work. So you just got to choose the right one. We'll have a look at that in a future webinar. Okay. I'm just looking at some other questions. Right. Okay, I'm just going to carry on then. Okay, also part of the accounting side of things would be journal entries. Okay, so we can create journal entries. Here's one that's stuck in here. And those journal entries get posted. Now, the way that they get posted is, because I can change those journal entries. When I exit here and I go post and close, it's going to close any windows that are open, and then it zeroes out the adjustment column in my trial balance, and it reposts all the journals. If I look at my accounts, I've got this column here with adjustments in it. Okay, whenever I post, it first zeroes that out and reposts them. Okay, so there's no chance of duplicating the journals. Now, there are instances reported to me over networks where that does sometimes happen. It shouldn't happen, and the way to fix it is to go to the journals, repost them again. Okay, there's a couple of reports we can get out of there, journal reports. Right. Okay, I think we've dealt with everything that's on here. Oh, balance forward. Okay. Obviously, this year we do the file. We finalize the whole thing. Next year, we don't want to have to redo all the unnecessary work. So instead of copying in from a template, we copy from the last year's client file, and then we balance it forward. And the balance forward just takes the figures in the trial balance and just moves them down to the right. So last year becomes prior to, this year becomes last year, and this year becomes zeros. Okay, it doesn't balance forward like your pastel would balance forward. It just goes to zeros because you're going to go and import that trial balance from somewhere. Okay, there's our different import options, as mentioned, journals. Right, I had someone earlier email me and ask, well, how do we print all the leads? Okay, because obviously the leads are available to us and are important. That's where we would do our audit working conclusions. But these leads are something that we would print. So if I'm working in this lead and I'm finished, and I click on lead, it prints it, and you see it now appeared in the index F000. Okay, if I can also do it from here, in that I could go to a lead, say for I think we've got inventory here. Okay, there's no lead on the right, but if I click on the ePrint here, it's going to create that lead and print it out for me. Now he asked, how do we print all those leads at once? I'm sorry, but I don't have that functionality in at the moment, other than to be able to print them all to Excel at once. And you can do that by clicking on this button here. It says Review Leads. And that will open up a window that has all the leads and puts all the balances in. And if I click on Excel Leads, it will create an Excel workbook with a separate sheet for each lead. Let's just do it quickly. And see what we get. Go to Excel. Okay, and you notice there was F000, there's a lead, F000, the sub-lead, 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 but they're all there. Okay, and they would have the conclusions that were on there as well. So that's the only way to do it all at the moment. Not ideal, but I will certainly build something in, probably from this screen. I'll put a button on the side here that will print all those leads into the E folder in one go. Hope that will be useful in the future. Right, we really are running out of time, and all I've done is deal with the accounting side of things. Okay, one thing that I wanted to tell you was in using AuditMate, usually you would start from our templates. Okay, our templates are built with various documents in. They've got the financial statements in. They've got Word documents like an engagement letter. Okay, if you double click on the engagement letter, it's going to open up Word. So it's down here on my toolbar. And it will be that Word document for the engagement. Now, in many cases, you'll want to put your own letterhead in here. So you don't want to have to do that every time. Of course you could. Just copy and paste that image into this document. There's your letterhead. But ideally, one would want to create your own master that's got all those things in it. So that's one way that you can customize. And we're going to do a webinar on customization. But we'll go through how you get your letterhead images in here into the annual financial statements, for like the accounting officer's report, the audit report, etc. We can create a master that is yours and tailored for you, and then when you create a new client, you choose from that master instead of from our templates. And that's going to give you, again, more efficiencies in the office, and also just in terms of professional image and getting that out there with your logos on and things. All right, I need to look at the audit side of things as well. Okay, so that's on the audit tab. Now, as I mentioned before, the index is all in terms of the order of the ISA statements. Okay, so that makes it quite logical to work through. And you basically start at the top. So when you're doing an audit, you do your pre-engagement stuff. So you look at that document, client information, you'll open that document, fill in the details, save the document. It might be an Excel file, it might be a Word document, and get that information, save it in here. This is something that obviously can carry over from one year to the next as well. So you don't have to dig out the same information every year, but certainly you're going to want to check it and make sure it's up to date. As you complete an item, you can tick it off. And we have, on the left-hand side here, we can tick this one completed. We can tick it as not applicable, as an item for follow-up. So you can use this index to manage the job that you're working on. It works, it's a very effective way of doing things. You can also use manager review and final review when you come to the review side of things too. The audit is made up basically of checklists and audit programs. So if I go to programs here, I can drop down and choose a particular audit program. So let's see, we're doing bank and cash. And there's an audit program with all the steps that I need to do, potentially all the steps I need to do, in a generic format. Obviously, when you're doing the planning for your audit, and this is it's really important, that you try and eliminate as many audit steps as you can. Only do what you feel you have to do to be comfortable taking the risks into consideration, the materiality into consideration. I often have some people tell me, oh, the audit steps are duplicated. Okay, because under the sales cycle, we might have some debtors testing, and under debtors, we'll have some debtors testing. Same steps. But when you're doing your planning, you choose where you want to do that. And that's up to you. We've made these generic, comprehensive templates that have sufficient, maybe sometimes too much stuff in there, but it needs to be trimmed down during the planning stage. Very important that you do that. As you complete the audit steps, you tick them off. So you can tick off in terms of exceptions. So it's been done, so you would click no exceptions, or there's a comment, a score sheet item, a matter for partner's attention, it needs follow-up, then it's going to come up with different little symbols next to it. And those things that need follow-up or matters for partner's attention, if you click on this button here, it's going to list all those things. So it's a nice way for the manager who's just reviewing the file to see now what things are still outstanding, what still needs to be dealt with. So it's part of the audit process. So I'm having to go over this very quickly now. Okay, we also have checklists. So in the index, when we're dealing with, for example, here under the planning, we have a checklist for small entities. So there's a checklist, and it's yes or no questions. Okay, the program steps are usually do something, what's the result? The checklist is just a yes, no, or a not applicable. But again, if it's a follow-up, so if we look at one of these items and we flagged it for follow-up, and we go to that manager review, you're going to see that item is going to appear on the manager review because it's been flagged for follow-up. Right. Let's just get back to where we were. Audit. Right. So we've got checklists, got programs, and we've got various documents. So these documents might include things like engagement letters, engagement team discussions, the audit strategy. Okay, we work, the audit planning is done through an audit strategy memorandum, which you just work through, complete as you go, and do what it tells you to do. It tells you how to use AuditMate to do an audit. Right. Okay, I did have a question earlier about program steps. So for those of you who've used AuditMate, you'll be familiar with this, and you might have added some new program steps. So on any given audit program, you can tailor those audit steps. Let's take a program down here like property, plant, and equipment. We've got a whole lot of audit steps, and you might have added in a new audit step there specific to a certain client. Now, these are, as I said, fully tailorable. You can take them out, you can add things in. Now, when you're doing another client's file, you say, hey, I want those audit steps that I did on XYZ client. How do I get those into this one without retyping them? And there is a way to do that. It's on the Home tab, and we've got this, what's called a group, Copy Selected Group. And you can go to Copy Selected Program Steps. You can choose a source file, as it would be one of those other clients that you've worked on. So let's find something here. I don't know. And you can go through, find which section we're dealing with, which audit step it was, and then you can just drag and drop it into the step that you want over on this side. So you just take that, drag it, and drop it. Or in this, it tells you at the bottom here, you can also right-click to copy. So you just right-click and choose copy, it will copy it across. If you copy all, it will copy all of those across. Okay, so that's one way to get stuff from one client file into another, one step at a time. Same thing applies with checklists, same thing applies with leads, and same thing applies at a higher level of looking at the accounting framework and the audit framework at the same time. So there are ways to mix and match between clients. And I think, again, we should probably cover that in detail under customizing for your own firm. Okay, I know I've gone through that last part very, very quickly there. I also wanted to show you, because it's part of the overview of the system, and it's linked in with the trial balance and the accounts, is that this trial balance and these accounts, you're going to produce IFRS in many cases, IFRS for SME accounts. But when you do your tax return, SARS isn't asking for the same figures that were in your IFRS for SME accounts. For example, if I look at our accounts, let's go to the index, just open up these financials. And I'm interested in the income statement and the detailed income statement. But our income statement is structured on the basis of revenue, cost of sales, gross profit. What does SARS want in the RTR 14? They don't want cost of sales. They want opening stock, purchases, less closing stock. And we need to give them those figures in the RTR 14. So are we going to go and change our financial statements to accommodate that? No, we've done this in terms of IFRS for SMEs already. We've done what is the right thing there. It's SARS that wants something different. But we need to be able to give them that something different. So we created this thing called the RTR 14 HelpMate. So RTR 14 HelpMate will take you through step by step producing the RTR 14, but with a difference. Because when we get to the end of filling in all these figures, we've got a thing that we call tax leads and tax journals. Now, automatically the figures from our trial balance are sucked through into these tax leads through a reference process that we created referencing the leads. Okay, so our leads ends up bringing these things through into here. And these items are the items that are required in the RTR 14. So if I look at the gross profit loss here, okay, you'll see they want sales, opening stock, purchases, closing stock. That's what's got to be in the RTR 14. But I've only got this cost of sales figure here. So how am I going to do this? Well, we've created tax journals. So I'm going to put through a tax journal. I'm not going to do it now because it's just going to take a while, but it will, you'll put it through the journal that's going to in this case, is going to debit opening stock and credit cost of sales, and credit closing stock and debit cost of sales. And that way, we'll have those figures that are required for the RTR 14, but we'll also, most importantly, have an audit trail of the differences between the IFRS for SMEs financial statements and the RTR 14. Then at the end of the day, we go to the RTR 14 here. It says, would you like to complete it? I say yes. And it's going to suck through all those figures and fill in the RTR 14 for you. Okay, now this is just it's a PDF file. You can't submit this to e-filing, but you can make adjustments on it because it's now within this PDF tool that we use. So all these details just come through by themselves. That income tax number would come through if I'd filled the income tax number in on that wizard that I looked at just now. And all these numbers will come through. You complete it all here. You then either print it out or save it, and someone just captures it onto e-filing themselves. And that's a much simpler task because it's been created in here with an audit trail, and you know what's gone into it, and you know how those things have got into it. Okay, through tax journals, tax leads, and we even have the tax comp in here as well. Let's just go through that quickly. Because this is something that we initially had as an add-on module, but really it's so useful and so effective that we decided to include it in the package. So this would be your schedules of any changes for the tax comp. So if I have, for example, here, special allowances not claimed in the income statement, I've got wear and tear. Okay, I'm going to have wear and tear. Now if I click on this button, I'm going to produce an Excel schedule for wear and tear. I can fill this all in, come up with that number, save it, and it tells me now that file's there, and I can put in whatever that wear and tear allowance is. And that's going to go into the tax calc. I look here, there's my net profit, there's my tax adjustments, and there's my tax liability. This is a really cool tool to use. And I hope that more people will make use of it. Maybe you've submitted all your returns already, I don't know. But certainly in the new year we can update that, and hopefully more people are going to use this. And we'll probably do a whole webinar on this because it obviously can get quite complicated. Right, let's just have a look at these questions again. Okay, there's a question about passwords. Now, we have in AuditMate, when the auto backups are created, they are actually created as a password protected zip file. And we put that in just so that if for some reason somebody else gets hold of that file who shouldn't get hold of it, they won't be able to see it. Right? Let me just use let me just go to Windows Explorer quickly. Let's put it across here. Okay, if I go into my AuditMate folder and I look at an auto backup here, and there's the zip file. I can open the zip file in there and I'll see the files. Okay, but if I try and open one of those files, it's going to ask me for a password. Now, you don't know the password, and I don't know the password. But AuditMate knows the password. Okay, so they can't get into this when it's just a zipped file like that. Which means you can't just give that file to one of your clerks and tell them to unzip it and work on it either. If you want to move files around between staff members, then use the built-in file backup. Okay, and it will create a backup file. You can tell it where to put that backup file. Put it on the desktop, put it on a flash drive, whatever. Okay, you start, it will do the backup. That backup's password protected, so it can't just anyone look at it. When the staff member wants to work on that file, what they have to do is close down, okay, I just need to close down my AuditMate here. I've got many things open right now. I would create a new file, okay, call it test restore. And instead of copying in a folder, whatever, I click cancel here and I go file, restore. And I will choose that file, be it on the flash drive or whatever, and restore it in here. The program knows what the password is. So the program can unzip those files and put it in. Now, the password is different between different firms, okay, because the password is built around the registered name of the firm. That's part of the password. So, you know, another firm can't, who's got AuditMate, get that file and restore it into their system. Okay, so there's a level of protection there. It probably can be hacked by someone who's really smart, but there's a level of protection that the common normal user is not going to get through that. So that's quite useful. If you're wanting to send a backup to another firm, now this is happening more and more often because, for example, clients are have bought ClientMate from us. Not ClientMate, AccountsMate. They're preparing their financials, then they're doing a backup and sending it to the auditors. Now when they do a backup, they can specify a password. So down here, if you don't specify a password, it uses a default, but if you specify a password, then it will use that password. You give that to the person who's going to restore the file, and they'll be able to restore it. So that's how that works. Okay, just moving on to other questions here. Right. Any more questions? But for those of you who don't know, on that little control panel that's showing, there's a question box, and you type in that question box, and that pops up on the screen next to me. And it pops up very, very tiny, and it's very hard to read, but I can try and answer those questions. Right, there's nothing else coming through, but I'm sorry it's been a little bit rushed. It was just an overview. I hope that I've covered the main points. Is there anything that anyone feels I haven't covered? When is the next webinar? Okay. I think we'll probably do it in about 2 weeks' time. I don't think I'll try one before then. In about 2 weeks' time. We will make this one available as a recording, and that might happen next week. And we'll probably aim to maybe try and do these every 2 weeks. If you feel that that's too long or too short, pop me a mail. Let me know. I think when the webinar ends, there's a link that you can go to give feedback on this webinar, and I would really value that. I mean, this is the first one that I've done. It's really strange talking to nobody who's sitting in front of me. There's no response from anybody. So it would be really good if you guys could just give me some feedback there, and we'll just take it from here. All right. I had a couple of thank yous here. Let's see another question. Okay, how do you add or change the notes in the AFS? Right, I'll just do that quickly. Let's go open up. Sorry, we're in the wrong thing here. Okay, let's go open up that one we're looking at. Yeah, you know, preparing the AFS is was an all-day seminar that we used to do. We can probably do it in a half a day as well, intensely. But there is obviously a lot to the AFS. Now, on the add-ins tab, this add-ins tab, this is part of the AuditMate. If I go to the notes page, let me just run right up to the top of the notes so you can see the structure of this. We've got all the accounting policies, and then we have the body of the notes. Now, each one of the notes is enclosed within what we call a section, which you don't see it here on the screen. You can see it if you click on here, change section, and you click. This is really for us to identify when there are problems. We've got a thing called load section markers. Okay, now you'll see these are sections. Each one that's a different color. These are different sections. And the way you can switch these things on and off is you go to Layout and you choose Current Sheet. Now, if you're on the Notes page, it's going to come up with all these notes. And every section will have a little tick box or a blank box, depending on whether it's switched on or off. And the way that you decide whether to have a note visible or invisible is by ticking it on or off. So if I don't need the goodwill note, I will untick it. Okay, if I need investments, I will tick it. These are the accounting policies part. Okay, run down a little bit, and at this level here is where we start now getting into the body of the notes. So I have accounting policies for each of them, on or off, and then I have the body of the notes coming down. And now switch them on or off by ticking them on or off. That is the way to do it. By doing it this way, the notes automatically number. If you do it some other way, you're going to mess up the numbering of the notes. So this is the way to do it. So it's Layout, Current Sheet, and then we tick them on or off. Click on Update, and it's going to run through, and it's going to hide those sections which were unticked, and it's going to make visible the ones that were ticked. Okay, I just want to get rid of these again. So we can see what's what. Okay, then within a particular note. So let's take this note here for property, plant, and equipment, for example. Okay, the light blue lines and the dark blue lines, those are print skip markers. Those don't print when we do the final thing. But while we're working in what's called revealed mode, then we see them. And we should always, when we're preparing our financials, we should always be in revealed mode. Because then we're going to see all the blue lines, and in those lines you might see something that you actually need, so you can make the line not blue and it will then print. But in this example, we don't have any land and buildings. So I don't need these rows here. This year I don't need them. But next year I might need them. So I don't want to delete them now because I'm going to use the same file next year. So rather than delete them, I can put print skip markers on them. And the way I do that is I just select those rows. And if I click on here, set row, this is print skip marker set row. And I click that, it turns dark blue, and it's not going to print. But it's still there if I need it next year. Then I can come along, block it, and I can click remove the print skip marker. And now I will see it when it's available again. Okay, so that's how we do it within a note. Rather just use the print skip markers to hide those rows. When I go into hidden mode, which I'm going to do now, it will take a little while, probably take a while to come through on the screen, but all the blue lines are going to disappear. Okay, it's still busy working. As I said, there's a lot of rows, especially in the notes. There's probably 2,000 rows in the notes. Okay, so now those blue lines disappeared, and we only got what you see is what you get. I hope that answers those questions. Got another question here about reporting, okay, and I didn't actually cover this, but in the accounts we go from the trial balance into the leads. But what if we want to group some accounts together, not in the leads? So in the detailed income statement, and this is a good example here. We've actually got we've got repairs and maintenance in different categories, but I decided that in the detailed income statement I only want to see repairs and maintenance. So I take this as my account that I want to go in. I change the description here. Just double click, change that. And then I take each of these repairs and maintenance accounts and I group them to that repairs and maintenance account. And instead of 4 appearing in the detailed income statement, only 1 will appear. Now the question here I got was, is it okay to change the figures and change the lead allocations on this window? And absolutely it's okay. So if you see that, oh, I don't want this to be on this particular lead, yes, I can go here and I can actually reallocate it to a different lead. So let's take this one, directors' emoluments. I actually wanted it there under the cost of sales. Okay, I can do that, no trouble. The figure, if I think Michelle, she says she's typing the figures in here because you've got a hassle importing from QuickBooks. So she's just typing the figure in. Yeah, you can edit that figure, you can type it in. Okay, just want to make sure that your trial balance still balances at the end of the day. And you would also, Michelle, I would suggest that you run the error checks after you've done this, because you could end up with a grouping problem where you're grouping accounts and they're not on the same lead. So that could be potentially a hassle. But yeah, you can do it on there, no problem at all. All right. Just going to wait just a minute or two and just go through my notes again. Yeah, one of the key things that we're trying to do is to be efficient. Okay, so if we've done something one year, we want to be able to use that again the next year. And this tool is built so that you can do that. You obviously just need to know how to do it. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. So if you think that you are duplicating, you're having to redo something that you did in the previous year, pick up the phone and phone me. We can use TeamViewer. I can show you how to do it. I can't stress enough that I'm actually here to help you guys be more efficient. When I hear that someone's wasted hours trying to do something just because they didn't know one little thing there that I could have showed them, I just tear my hair out, because we just don't have lives to waste like that. Doing this job can be quite laborious sometimes. We don't want to have to do it twice. Okay, and just another question here. Okay, about page breaks in the financials. Okay, the financials, I mean, it's a big subject, but yes, in the notes to the financials, you do have to have the page breaks in the right place. Which, like I said to you, you work in the financials in revealed mode. And you only go to hidden mode when you think you're ready to print. Then you're going to need to go to the top of your notes. And the first thing you're going to do is you right click and you look for this option that says reset all page breaks. And you click on it. And what that does is Excel works out where the page breaks should go in your page. Then you work down and you decide, now, did Excel get it right? And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but most times you're going to want to change it. So we get to this first page break. It's a dotted line because Excel put it in there. And in this case, okay, I'm happy with where that dotted line goes. So I'll go down to the next one. The next one, oh, I don't want that dotted line there. I want it above inventories. Okay, why I say you want it above? Because you must never move these dotted lines down the page. If you move them down the page, what Excel does is it takes more text and it squashes it into a page. And the way it does that is by making the font smaller. So the rest of your financial statements will be in a certain font, and now your pages and your notes are going to be in the smaller font, and it's really going to not look good. If you drag this up, Excel doesn't make the font bigger, it just leaves a space at the bottom of the page. And as I dragged that page break up, Excel adjusted any page breaks below that to be in the right place. Okay, I come down, that one I'm happy with again, it's fine. Here, I'm going to need to move this one up. Move down to the next one. Here, okay, this is halfway through this note. I'm going to have to move that right up. Okay, and we're going to have quite a big blank space at the bottom of the previous page, but that's just the way it's going to have to be. Okay, and then I'll move down, just adjusting those notes, adjusting the headers all the way through. So that's how the page breaks works. Hope that answered that question. Right, how do I tell the figure is a debit? Okay. Okay, here's a very good question. In our trial balance, let's have a look at this when we're assigning the leads. I think there might be an example in here. I thought we had an example in here, but let's just fudge this one. Let's adjust. Let's adjust these numbers here. So, well, no, okay, I'm not going to. Okay, many times you have like tax payable here, and because of provisional tax, maybe this year this is actually a debit balance, and last year it was a credit balance, and it can't go onto the same lead, okay, because our lead, I just changed by mistake here, but our lead here should have been, oh boy, sorry, I'm just messing things up. Let's go to assign leads again. I'm sure that this is in one of the example files, so I'm just going to have a look at this one. No, it's not. Okay, and so this one is a classic. This is one that often happens on the tax payable, where the one year it's a debit, the other year it's a credit. So our leads for tax payable, if I look on the left here, is we've got tax refundable and tax payable. So the one year needs to be on the refundable lead, and the other year needs to be on the payable lead. We built in a way to do this, and that you would choose that account, tax payable, and then click on this button that says split account. What that does is it creates a new account with this hash after it. So it's the same account number, which is important for when you're doing your journal entries. Okay, because you're going to give the journal entries to your client, you want to have the same account number. That's why we just put a hash on the end of it, and it's split it into the two different years. And the one might be a debit and the one might be a credit, and then you can allocate to the appropriate lead. Okay, so that one might go to the tax refundable, and that one would be the tax payable. Obviously, if it was a debit and that was a credit. All right, and that happens quite often with the bank account as well. One year it's going to be a bank overdraft, and the next year it's a positive balance. And if I look up at the leads for cash and bank, we've got cash and bank there, and we've got bank overdrafts there. One's a debit, one's a credit, so you might need to split that account and do the same thing with that. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, it's 4:30. I don't see anything else. I think I'm going to call the end of the webinar and just say thank you so much to everyone who attended. I enjoyed it. Sorry, a little bit rushed. Maybe I've just tried to put too much into it today and it was a little bit too in-depth and not as overview as maybe it should have been. The next ones, I think we're just going to do the in-depth thing, and just please give us your feedback, the time of day that we chose to do this, the length of the training. Yeah, any feedback will be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, and goodbye for now.